It was Saturday morning, and the sun was breaking over the horizon. Rays of light pierced through the window, revealing a group of disciples who were huddled together. They were hiding in fear, concerned that those who had killed Jesus the day before would soon be coming for them. The disciples were not alone, as many others who had followed Jesus during his ministry were gathered with them, including Mary and Martha and their brother Lazarus. There was much sorrow mixed with confusion among the group. Some were saying that Jesus could not be the Messiah because he was now dead. Others were complaining about the wasted years, having left everything to follow the teacher. Others were murmuring their doubts about Jesus. Frustrated by the growing pessimism in the room, Mary and Martha jumped to their feet and cautioned everyone to stop in an attempt to settle down the troubled group. The sisters began recounting all the wonderful things that Jesus said and did. Mary reminds them it was only days ago when their brother Lazarus had become very sick with an aggressive illness, and his health began to decline rapidly. Within a few days, he was unable to muster the strength to get out of bed. It became evident to the sisters that Lazarus was going to die. When we realized how serious the situation was, we arranged for a messenger to send word to the healer. We had seen Jesus heal multitudes of others who suffered from all kinds of diseases. We were certain when Jesus got word about our brother's condition that he would come and heal him too. However, when the message had reached Jesus, he waited a couple of days to respond. In the meantime, Lazarus became unresponsive. We gathered around him, begging God for a miracle. But when we finished praying and opened our eyes, our brother had breathed his last breath. We were devastated. Why had Jesus not come? Why had Jesus let our brother die? If only Jesus had been there, Lazarus would still be alive. We made arrangements for the burial the next day. 4 days later, Jesus finally arrived at Bethany. When I got word that he was coming, I went to meet him, but Mary stayed in the house. I said to Jesus, "If only you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now, I know that God will give you whatever you ask." Jesus told me, "Your brother will rise again." "Yes," I replied, "he will rise when everyone else rises at the last day." Jesus proclaimed, "I am the resurrection and the life. Anyone who believes in me will live, even after dying. Everyone who lives in me and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this, Martha?" "Yes, Lord," I told him. "I have always believed you are the Messiah, the Son of God, the one who has come into the world from God." Mary reminded the disciples that she and Martha took Jesus to the place Lazarus had been buried. It was a small cave cut out of the hillside with a large stone placed in front of the entrance. We both saw how Jesus wept and how the people who were standing nearby said, "See how much he loved him." When we arrived at the tomb, there were many from the village still mourning our brother's death. Jesus commanded some of those who were mourning to roll away the stone. In shock, my sister protested and told Jesus that Lazarus had been dead for 4 days, and rolling the stone away would unleash a terrible odor. Jesus responded, "Didn't I tell you you would see God's glory if you believe?" And he looked up and began to pray loudly to his Father. Everyone there could hear Jesus. When he was done praying, Jesus shouted out in a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out!" You could hear a pin drop. The anticipation was breathless. As soon as Jesus had said the words, our dead brother walked out of the grave alive. He was alive and fully healed. It was a miracle. The miracle worker had done the impossible. Jesus' words, "I am the resurrection," were true. We heard it with our own ears and we saw it with our own eyes. The sisters told everyone in the room to look at their brother and challenged all those gathered to believe in Jesus, to believe in the miraculous, life-giving power of Jesus. Yes, it's true. Jesus is dead. We had heard with our own ears Jesus say, "It is finished." And we saw with our own eyes Jesus breathe his last breath. And we have seen where he is buried. We have seen the stone that was rolled in front of the grave. But we have seen this before. Remember? If Jesus could raise Lazarus from the dead after 4 days, he could rise from the dead too. It was only the second day. The sisters continued to encourage the group to stop hiding in fear and to trust God and seek his will for them as they wait. Martha reminded them of another recent account. Not long after Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead, he had come to stay at our home. I had prepared a great dinner in honor of Jesus. She explained to the group that this was no ordinary meal. This was a celebration to show their profound gratitude to Jesus. Gratitude for the incredible miracle of bringing their brother back to them from the dead. Martha emphasized that she could have been preparing food for her brother's wake, but instead, she was preparing food to celebrate that he was alive. Martha exclaimed, "The meal must be fit for a king." Martha felt that Jesus was worthy of her service and that serving the Lord with one's talents and gifts was the best way to show gratitude to him. As Martha went on and on about all the things she had prepared that day, Mary gently interrupted her and began to tell them how hosting meals in their home, especially the one for Jesus, had created tension between the sisters. Mary described how Martha was busy in the kitchen preparing the meal while she sat at Jesus' feet, listening to the teacher, hanging on to his every word. While Martha believed serving was the way to honor the Lord, Mary believed that Jesus was worthy of spending time with and listening to his teaching. She felt this was the better way to show devotion to him. Martha interrupted Mary and recalled how she had complained to Jesus and said, "Lord, doesn't it seem unfair to you that my sister sits here while I do all the work?" They both remember how Jesus responded, "My dear Martha, you are worried and upset about serving me and the others, but right now, there's only one thing worth being concerned about, and Mary has discovered it. This will not be taken away from her." Martha admitted that she was frustrated by the situation and returned to her busy preparation in the kitchen, while Mary slipped into a back room, preparing a costly gift she purchased to present to Jesus. As Martha was frantically placing dishes on the table, Mary was slowly approaching Jesus with a small alabaster jar. As Martha was serving the meal, Mary began pouring the costly oil to anoint Jesus' feet. As Martha was kneeling on the floor wiping up the spills, Mary was kneeling on the floor wiping Jesus' feet with her hair. The house that was filled with the smells of Martha's elaborate feast was suddenly overpowered with the fragrant aroma of Mary's worship. This humble yet extravagant act brought the celebration to an abrupt stop, and the room grew silent. All eyes were fixed on Mary, who was humbly kneeling at the feet of Jesus. Her oil-drenched hair seemed out of place and inappropriate for a banquet. But no one could deny that they were witnessing a significant act of sacrificial worship. It was an awkward scene for the guests and an embarrassment to Martha, whose food was growing cold as the icy stare of Judas Iscariot, the disciple who would soon betray Jesus. Indignant, Judas broke the silence. That perfume was worth a year's wages. It should have been sold and the money given to the poor. Not that Judas cared for the poor. He was a thief, and since he was in charge of the disciples' money, he often stole some for himself. Jesus rebuked Judas to leave Mary alone. She did this in preparation for my burial. You will always have the poor among you, but you will not always have me. Mary and Martha reminded the group that Jesus had warned us about his death on many occasions, so we should not be surprised by what has happened. The two women continued to challenge the others to not mourn and doubt, but instead they should believe in the one who is the resurrection and the life. They should have faith in God, who can bring the dead back to life. Mary encouraged them to worship God while they waited for his will to be revealed to them, and challenged them to spend time and remember the things that Jesus taught them. Martha encouraged them to find ways to serve God and each other while they waited. Martha begins to prepare food for the group while Mary sits and talks to her brother. The sun continued to climb as the noon hour approached on Saturday. How much longer would they have to wait?